Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Today's project is going to be a bit of a lash-up. I'm going to be creating a bench for the front porch. We didn't want a bench that was really fancy, we just wanted a good solid bench that would hold a potted plant and let you sit down for a minute. So with a Craig jig and a couple of 2x12s, we're going to put one together. In part one, I'm going to cut up the pieces and get them ready to put together. Well, the first part of the operation is to set up the work area. I'm going to take a page from Louie's book and use the tailgate of my pickup truck. Yes, I know, I've got all kinds of devices and benches and things to work with, but this is a quick project. The purpose of the exercise is to have a bench on the front porch. We want to have it about that high, and I'm working off measurements that were given to me by the buyer. We want to have it about that high, just high enough to sit on and be comfortable. I want to leave it about 3 or 4 inches shorter than the step, so that as you're walking by you're not going to catch your knee on it. And I'm going to make it out of this heavy 2x12 because I don't want it to move when the wind blows. We get a lot of strong winds out of the west, which is that direction, and we had a problem with the little bench we had on here before getting knocked off in high winds. Building it out of this pine 2x12, it's going to be plenty heavy. I don't think a little wind's going to bother it. This was the original bench. It worked well, it was cute. The buyer liked the idea of having it on the front porch, but it wasn't very weather resistant. It's made from white pine, which is not very weather resistant, and also it was not sealed well. It wasn't set up for being outside. It was supposed to be a nice little decoration for an enclosed porch or inside a foyer. Definitely very 70s. Now we have to make one strong enough, sturdy enough to last outside. Bench is going to be 44 inches long. Part of the reason for the 44 inches is I've got a knot right here. And I want to eliminate that knot so that I don't have to deal with it later when it starts checking. Bench needs to be 16 inches high. So I have 2 legs. An inch and a half thick. So 16 minus an inch and a half. 16 minus an inch and a half is 14 and a half. So I need to lay out and cut 2 legs 14 and a half inches long. I really do like this D8. At 8 points per inch, it just sings through this wood. The 2x12's got a little bit of case hardening in it. It's pinching shut and gripping onto the saw, so it's going to be a little bit more work. Might end up having to cut both directions. Looks like I've gone past the case hardening. Yep, it stopped closing up. There. Some of you might ask, why such a heavy bench? Why use 2x12s? There's two reasons. One, we didn't want to have it blow off the front porch. And two, these are the ramps that I used to haul all the heavy equipment over here. When we moved, I had to move all my tools myself. So I used the engine hoist, which is disassembled out in the tractor shed. Used the engine hoist to set it up in the back of my half-ton pickup truck. I had a full-size GMC at the time. I loaded the tools in the back of the truck. That big radial arm saw was the biggest. And then I disassembled the engine hoist, set it in the back of the truck, brought it over here, reassembled it, set the radial arm saw back on the ground, and went back and got another load. It took me about a week to move everything. When I went to go get the blacksmith equipment, I had already gotten rid of the half-ton truck. So I used 2x12s as a ramp to roll the stuff up into the back of the truck. Bob Collins helped me move everything into the back of the truck. I got it over here, rolled it down, put it into the blacksmith shop, and that's where it's sit ever since. So I'm recycling the 2x12 ramps into a bench. Waste not, want not. This is the best side of the 2x12. So I'm going to mount the legs to this side. And just to make sure I don't forget that, I'm going to mark bottom on it. Like this little bench, I'm going to move the legs in from the end just a little bit. Gives it kind of a better look. But I don't want to go too far because otherwise you sit on the end of the bench and you can flip it. That's about a 20-to-1 ratio on the leverage, so I don't think anybody's going to be able to sit on the end and flip this bench up. Need a 2x4 39.5 inches long. I can cut off these 2 nail holes. This is recycled pallet wood. Goes with the project, right? So I'm going to cut off these 2 nail holes off the end of it, and then I'll still have enough to make the 39.5 inches without having to go into that chipped up piece on the other end. Putting a little weight on it acts as a clamp so that it doesn't vibrate around while I'm trying to make the cut. And I'm shying away from the Craig jig. I'm going to use the Craig jig to lock the legs to the top by putting 4 in each end. But I'm going to do the assembly with standard decking screws. I have a couple of exposed heads here, but they'll be out of the weather because they'll have the overhang of the bench. They won't get wet if it rains, and I think I'm going to be a lot stronger going that way. Well, we're done with the rough layout. Now we're on to the actual assembly, but that'll be part 2. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.